Hey guys, Trent Hyatt here with Sky Insurance Tech, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the Affordable Care Act. Here at Sky Insurance Tech, a big part of what we do is we help large employers stay compliant with their ACA plans, and we really focus extensively on doing the reporting that's required for the IRS under 6056. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but today I want to kind of go back and revisit where we have come from regarding the ACA, how that has affected individuals as well as employers, where we are currently, what we think the outlook looks like for the ACA long term, what that means for employers and individuals, what are some current threats to the Affordable Care Act, what have they been previously, and ramifications of those things, and just an overall synopsis of where we think we are and where we're heading. So, hope you enjoy. So really where the story starts, or where the story is going to start with me for purposes of today, is going back to 2015. So the Affordable Care Act was passed back in 2010, and interchangeably the Affordable Care Act, or ACA, you may hear me say these terms like multiple times. The Affordable Care Act, ACA, Obamacare, it's all the same thing. Those are just different ways of saying the exact same thing. But 2015 is where we're going to pick up, just because this was the advent of the employer mandate. So 2015, you had 60-55, this is a 6, 60-55, and 60-56. So 60-55 was the individual mandate, all right? This was the mandate that said that every single individual had to have health insurance or they would incur a penalty under the Affordable Care Act, ACA, Obamacare. Again, 60-56 applied to employers. So we'll say this is multiple people. All right, and there were a number of different areas for the employers, different subsets and different regulations and rules, but what we are going to focus on specifically within the employer mandate is how it applies to what is known as ALEs, applicable large employers. So as of 2015, this was the first year where any person, or sorry, I should say any employer that had more than 50 full-time employees, we'll call those full-time employees, or FTEs, which is full-time equivalents, 50 full-time employees had to report using what was known as a 1095-C. All right, so we had 1095-C, which is just a report to the IRS letting people know who had health insurance and who didn't. All right, because remember, it was very important under 60-55 for every individual to be covered with health insurance. That was one of the primary goals of the Affordable Care Act. And one of the ways that the IRS was able to track who had insurance and who didn't was through these large employers. So there was a mandate under the 60-56 that said that large employers had to offer the right type of coverage at the right type of cost. So without getting too far into the weeds, there were regulations for what was considered affordable and what was to be offered to certain individuals based on their income. They needed to be offered affordable health coverage that covered certain aspects. And so 60-56 came in here in 2015, and employers now had to do extra work with regard to taxes or tax reporting and creating forms 1095-C. So previously there was 1095-A, which is a tax form that the exchanges created, and that helped people understand who received a subsidy for their health insurance. Subsidy is just another way of saying money from the government to help them cover their health insurance expenses. There was 1095-B that was being produced by insurance carriers and self-funded employers that said, hey, this individual was enrolled in this coverage, which then helped them implement the individual mandate. And 1095-C came in and said this individual was offered this type of health insurance, and it was important to have the 1095-C because they were showing on the 1095-C not only did we offer the coverage, but in compliance with 60-56, the coverage was affordable and it was the right type of coverage. All right, so that's kind of how we unpack the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and where it arrived in 2015. Sky Insurance Tech really started working with large employers in 2015 to help them with their compliance, because there were penalties associated with not having insurance as an individual. So you could either choose to purchase the insurance that was mandated, or you could pay the penalty as an individual. And all of us as U.S. citizens know a little bit about that. But under 6056 now, there was a penalty associated with not offering the right type of coverage or the right type of cost to your employees. So on the individual side, each individual could incur a penalty, but now on the employer side, for large employers, the ALEs again, having 50 or more full-time employees, they could incur a penalty as an organization, and these penalties were very steep. So you needed to offer the right type of coverage at the right type of cost, and the only way you can really prove that is by creating forms 1095C, right? So you had 1094C and 1095C. Again, I'm not going to get into the weeds and specifics of those actual forms, but this is what Sky Insurance Tech came out and was helping large employers with, and still does today. All right, so that leads us into 2016. So 2016, we are going strong with 6055 individual mandate, 6056 the employer mandate. People are trying to get compliant. People are creating the forms. But we have a big thing that happens in 2016. We have a presidential election. And so the election of 2016, what does this mean? Well, prior to the election of 2016, we had a Democrat in office, right? And so the Republican nominee comes out, it's Donald Trump. We all know how this went down, all right? So 2016 came along, and Trump is now in the White House. All right, so in order for laws to change, you have to have some type of consensus in Congress, right? So if there's Democrats occupying, one chamber, and then there's Republicans occupying another chamber, they need to come to some bipartisan consensus, and then obviously the president has the ability to intercede, throw it out, or sign it into law. Well, what happened in 2016, which made things very interesting, especially for us, since we do ACA compliance in 1095C forms, was that Congress, the House and the Senate, as well as the White House, was all Republican controlled. So there was a sweep, right? And now it's all Republican controlled. So everything, that's an R, everything is Republican controlled. And a lot of these Republicans ran on the idea of Obamacare repeal, and that's something that you've probably heard multiple times in the media over and over again for years now. Repeal and replace Obamacare. That was the original mantra. Repeal and replace, repeal and replace, repeal and replace, okay? So Americans at that point in time didn't really know what was going to happen to the healthcare law. As of 2016, will Obamacare be entirely, repealed and then replaced with some other type of plan? Would it be repealed without replacement? So a lot of people, depending on where they aligned and where they were personally, there was a lot of fear. A lot of people wondered if they would lose health insurance for themselves or their children. People with chronic conditions were worried if they could continue to get their medications and so on and so forth. And so there was really a time of unrest as it pertains to the healthcare sector. Healthcare, I think some of the stats that I've seen is that the healthcare sector makes up about 1/6 of our economy. So this is pretty substantial and very impactful. And so a lot of publicity was circulating, focusing on the Affordable Care Act and what was to happen. And Trump ran on this idea of, we'll call it R and R, but it was repeal and replace, repeal and replace, repeal and replace. So he was going to get rid of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Again, they're the same thing. And so 2016 leading into 2017, we had a number of bills that were produced that came down to a vote either in the House or the Senate. It was the summer of 2017 where John McCain famously cast the deciding vote on, I think it was the American Health Care Act, don't quote me on that, but he gave it the thumbs down. It was unable to pass in Senate, and so repeal of the Affordable Care Act did not happen. So ACA remained the law of the land. Individuals still needed to have health insurance under 6055. Employers still needed to provide the right type of coverage at the right type of cost under 6056. And that's the way that it was. However, Trump is very persistent. That's one thing that we can say about him. I'll try not to align with one political party or the other during this conversation. But in 2017, he went to work on reforming tax law. All right, so we had tax law, and this was one of the greatest reforms, or I should say largest reforms, in the last 50 years. I think we've had three major overhauls in the tax system in the last 50 to 60 years. And I think the last one occurred in 1989, 1987, something like that. I just looked at this the other day. But Trump was successful in reforming the tax law. And within this tax law, he was able to effectively take the penalty. Remember 60-55, the individual mandate? I'll just draw a little happy face guy. So this was just the individual. He was not able to completely wipe the law off the books. He would have needed Congress to come together and vote to repeal the law itself. But what he did do is, remember, this was associated with a penalty. This was associated with a penalty. What he did was he took the penalty and he lowered it down to $0. So there would be no penalty associated with not buying health insurance as an individual. So what he did was he took the teeth out of the dog, right? And so there was no reason for anyone to comply with 60-55 going forward. So effectively, he wiped it off the books. Even though it's still in the law, the penalty with not complying to the law is $0, which means that no one is forced to buy insurance or face a penalty anymore. So it's still there. But the ACA is still lawful. It's still the law of the land. And 60-56 is still there. They were unable to do anything with 60-56. And that's the large employers. Remember, we're going to draw multiple people here. This says that large employers must provide, again, I've said this multiple times, right type of coverage at the right type of cost. So here at Sky, we continue to help people with their compliance. We continue to help them report. But on the Republican agenda, there's still this mantra of repeal and replace, repeal and replace. And over the previous 2 years leading up to this, so now we're going into 2018, repeal efforts fell short. And one of the large reasons for this, one of the major reasons, was that there just wasn't a suitable replacement, okay? So once we started to subsidize health insurance for individuals, we were helping them pay their insurance costs. All of the replacements had direct and drastic impacts to the federal budget, and it was really hard to get a bipartisan consensus on what should we do, and there was a failure to reach agreement. Well, one of the big things that happened in 2018 was midterms. Okay, remember I said in 2016, Congress was controlled by Republicans in the House and the Senate. Well, Republican also sat in the office in the form of Donald Trump in the White House. Well, midterms came up in 2018. So 2018, midterms, what happened was the House flipped back to Democratic control. So the Dems are now in control of the House. And from there, we knew, effectively, any talks of creating a law that would totally wipe the ACA off the books was out. Because the House was never going to agree, at this point, being Democratic control, it was never going to agree to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, because they are very much in favor of the Affordable Care Act. They're very much in favor of subsidized health insurance. So that's where we stood at the end of 2018. So a lot of people who wanted to push for Obamacare repeal, overhaul to that whole entire thing, knew that this was effectively dead as soon as the House flipped back to Democratic control. So the ACA was, quote unquote, safe for the time being, but we know that it's on the Republican agenda to try to get rid of the Affordable Care Act and replace it with something else, which they say will be more affordable and better for the American people in general. It's just that they've not been able to do that thus far. So that brings us, politically, that gets us caught up to where we are. However, another thing came about at the end of 2018. At the end of 2018, a Texas judge ruled that in the absence of 6055, so in the absence of 6055, again, which was the individual mandate, the ACA was, I'll just do UNC, unconstitutional. It's now unconstitutional, the law itself. A Texas judge, which was a conservative judge, ruled that the ACA was unconstitutional. So now we have another threat to the Affordable Care Act law. And really, since the individual mandate is not being enforced, what we're really talking about are requirements placed on healthcare providers that they need to comply with the Affordable Care Act. And for us, we do large employer compliance. Will large employers still have to offer this affordable health care coverage to these individuals? How does this affect 6056? This is an ongoing topic, and this is where we are. Today is May 7th. Today's May 7th, 2019. How does this affect employers, right? So getting into this, here's an update on this, and then this is where we're going to get into what we think will happen and what we know so far. So this Texas judge is historically known to be extremely conservative. After doing some research, I was able to find that if there is an agenda item that is conservative and it warrants publicity, especially for political reasons, this is the judge to go to. That is an opinion, but I've looked at a number of court cases that go here. However, since the House is controlled by Democrats, right? The House is under Democratic control. They intervened almost immediately in this. All right. So what's being happened now is that this court case is being sent to the Fifth Circuit. Okay. This is being sent to the Fifth Circuit of the Supreme Court down in. It's in New Orleans, right? So currently, the Fifth Circuit Court is to hear this case. Now, we have contacts, I won't say who, but we have individuals that we are in touch with who have a little bit of insight when it comes to this. And what we are hearing as it pertains to this is there's about an 80-20 probability here. 80% chance that this case is thrown out entirely. We'll just say, we'll throw an arrow for thrown out. All right. In other words, it stops here at the Fifth Circuit. All right. There's about a 20% chance that this goes to the Supreme Court. There's about a 20% chance. So 80% chance that this is thrown out. ACA continues the way that it has continued. Okay, so currently it's important to note and keep reminding viewers that the law has not changed. It's still in place. All right, so the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land. No one has been able to get rid of this law, but this is going to the Supreme Court. About a 20% chance. Again, 80% chance that it's done here. All right, but what it has done is garnered a lot of attention. Politically, it's shown that Republicans are still making an effort to get rid of this law, as many of them campaigned on. And so you have to step back and ask yourself, is this politically motivated? Yes, absolutely. I think anyone can agree on that. Whether it's justified or not, that's where it becomes subjective. All right. So 80% chance it's gone, 20% chance it goes to the Supreme Court. And then as we come through here, the funnel gets smaller and smaller and smaller as far as the likelihood of this ruling of it being unconstitutional being held up, because once it goes to the Supreme Court, it then has to make it onto the schedule of the Supreme Court. Currently, if you look at the Supreme Court schedule, it looks like they're about 8 months backlogged. So if it were to turn over to the Supreme Court today, we're looking at, currently, this happened in 2018, but obviously it's 2019 now, right? And it's May 7th of 2019, so we're looking at 2020 before the Supreme Court would hear this. Now, there is a chance that the Supreme Court would move it to the front of the schedule because it is a pressing item. Again, the chances of that become even smaller. That's even within the 20% chance they even hear the court case at all, okay? And we're still sitting with Democratic control in the House. There's another important thing that happens in 2020. it's another election cycle, all right? So you can see that there's people gearing up right now in the Democratic Party ready to face Donald Trump. Donald Trump has kicked off his re-election campaign process. He's eager to get back on this. Mitch McConnell, leader in the Senate, has come out and said that they will not revisit the Affordable Care Act before 2020. They're not going to do it, all right? So Mitch McConnell was very specific on that, saying, we're done with this, not why the House is controlled by Democrats. We have other items that we want to focus on, and so we're not going to revisit this. So all of that being said, it looks like this is not even on the table until after the 2020 election, which puts us in 2021. We're in 2019. So there still has to be compliance with the Affordable Care Act laws, the Obamacare laws for 2019. Looks like we're going to go into 2020 and there's still going to need to be compliance. It's not until 2021 that we actually have, this could even be a question again. However, let's get into the topic of the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court, in the small chance that the Supreme Court hears this case, and they hear this case prior to the 2020 presidential election, you then have to ask yourself, will the Supreme Court rule in favor of a ruling that eliminates health care for individuals without a suitable replacement, all right? And how will they get a suitable replacement? Well, the thought is they're going to get a suitable replacement by going back to Congress. But Congress is split, Democrats and Republicans. So far, they've been unable to agree on a replacement plan. They were unable to agree on a replacement plan when it was majority controlled in both chambers by Republicans. So now that it's split, you have to ask yourself, what's the likelihood that the Democrats and Republicans will come up with a replacement if the Supreme Court, on the smallest of small chances, rules in favor that this is now unconstitutional? It needs to be, considered unlawful, removed from the laws. What are the chances? Very small. Some of the judges and lawmakers that we have been in contact with, when they've expressed opinions to us, have said that they do not think that the judicial branch will have the final say in this. They will need at some point to flip it over to Congress to create laws. And right now, Congress is not agreeing, right? So the chances of this going away become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller the further you look into it, all right? So if you were someone who was, if think betting odds, I wouldn't bet against the Affordable Care Act currently. That's just my opinion. Not until we get to 2020 and see what happens. If the 2020 election sees Donald Trump getting reelected, sees the House flipping back to Republican control, then you can bet that they're going to try to do something with the Affordable Care Act again. But until then, it's our opinion. I won't even speak for us in general. It's my opinion that the Affordable Care Act is safe. People need to stay in compliance, continue to comply with the employer mandate until 2020 comes along. And then we know that 2020 election happens in the latter part of 2020, so we're really getting into 2021. But then once we're in 2021, reporting doesn't come out till 2022 for 2021. So people are already going to have to comply with the Affordable Care Act laws in 2021. So chances are, at a minimum, we're looking at another 3 years of this. That's if Donald Trump wins again. That's if Congress is controlled by Republicans, right? If there's any other scenario where, let's just say, Donald Trump loses the White House or Democrats maintain control in the House, we're in gridlock again. We're in gridlock again. And so ACA very well could and likely will remain the law of the land for some time to come. Not saying that there won't be changes made, not saying that some things will come and some things will go, because definitely there are issues and there are things that need to be remedied. But so far, even fixing those things, Congress has not been able to do it. And so we will see. We're going to see what's going to happen. But right now, where we are, there's no imminent threat to the Affordable Care Act. There's no imminent threat to Obamacare. There is a lot of political jargon. There's a lot of catchphrases and sound bites in the media to grab your attention, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. But this is just our opinion on where we are, where we have been, and where we're going. Hopefully this was helpful in, kind of narrowing down and reaching some level of understanding of where we sit. Thank you.